Hi, Glenn. Hey, Glenn. Hi, Glenn. Hi,
I
Chris.
have to unmute myself first.
Oh,
Hi, Eugene.
hi, Kristen. Hi, Armin.
Hi, Kristen. Hi, Armin. And Ian.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
So, Kristen, you ready to run your first meeting?
Yeah, do I have to do that?
Yes, unfortunately, you do.
I had a feeling that might be
Vice
happening.
Chair.
So what do? The order on, or take some
I
notes.
always bring up a second screen so I can look at the agenda, but it's roll call, accepting the agenda, comments by the public unrelated to tonight's issues. Then the consent calendar. Then new items. Oh, well, no. Study sessions. Then,
So all of that's in the agenda, so I know that.
yeah, if
part.
you just pull up the agenda, you can just go down the items.
Is it clear in the agenda? I haven't paid attention to this part, but I know that I ask for, like, when I ask for, that's the part I don't know. Like, I have people present, the applicant presents, then there's
Yes.
rebuttal and rebuttal.
The staff presents, and then you ask questions of the commissioners for staff. And then the applicant presents 10 minutes. And then the commissioners can ask questions of as well. And then it's open up to the public for questions. And then there's a rebuttal by the applicant. And then the commissioners give their comments.
Got it. Okay. And Nancy, you'll make sure that people are following the right amount of time, right? I don't have to do that?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you, because I won't remember that. All right. All right, well, here we go. You can correct me if I forget anything, Glenn.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Lafayette Design Review Commission. I would like to call the meeting to order, and we will start with roll call. I will go around my screen just to call out everyone's name. So Eugene,
Here.
Glenn,
Present.
Armin,
Present.
and I also am here, Kristen. So our first item on the agenda is, after roll call, is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt. I will remind you that I have to abstain from the one item on Mont Diablo Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. So Glenn motions to adopt. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. And now we will have a vote on, we do have to vote on everything that there's a motion for, right? Okay, so I will go around for everyone's vote. Eugene,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Armin,
Yes.
and I, Kristen, also vote in favor of adopting the agenda. Are there any public comments that we need to open up the floor to?
If anyone would like to make a comment on items not on the agenda, please use the raise hand function or press *9. I am seeing none.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. The next item on our agenda are the consent calendar items. So we have two consent items. The first one is the approval of the draft meeting minutes from our April 13th, 2022 minutes. Are there any comments or questions about that, or is there a
Yeah,
motion to
we
approve?
can't do that item this evening because we do not have a quorum.
Because some of us weren't here.
Yes, there's only 3 present and John is now gone.
Okay.
Am I correct, Nancy? Or is it a quorum of the people that were there?
It should be the quorum of the people there.
Oh, well, then we can pass that. So I make a motion to adopt the minutes. I have no problems with them.
Anyone second?
Yeah, and I was at that meeting as well, so I can second that motion.
Okay.
Okay,
Now we,
I was absent for May 13th
You
meeting.
can, yeah. I think it's-
Sorry, April 13th meeting.
Hmm.
right.
You accuse yourself.
so Armin doesn't vote on this one, so.
No, it would just be the 2 of us.
Okay,
Eugene.
so Eugene, are you in favor? And
Yes,
and Glenn? in
yes.
favor? So the attendees who currently are present, who were at that meeting, approve the meeting minutes from that meeting. And then we have the April 27th draft meeting minutes, which I believe I was absent.
Everyone was
for that.
present.
Oh, was I? Okay. So everyone was present for that one. So do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a
those?
motion to adopt those meetings minutes.
And I second that.
Okay, thank you. To vote for that, Eugene,
Yes,
Glenn?
Aye.
Armin?
Aye.
And Kristen is also aye, so both of the consent calendar items pass. The next item we have is a study session for a 706 square foot, 1-story addition to an existing 2,312 square foot, 1-story single family home that's located in the Hillside Overlay District. The address is 519 McBride Drive. So Nancy, I'll let you present the report.
Good evening, Commissioners. The item before you is study session 0622 Priscilla County. The lot is, it's at 519 McBride Drive. The lot is relatively flat in the developed area and it's upslopes towards the southeast at the rear. The lot is approximately 0.4 acres on the southwest side of McBride. Zone R10 and medium density single family. It's also within the Hillside Overlay District. The proposal, they are proposing to construct 907 square foot, 1-story addition to an existing 2,300 square foot, 1-story single family home. The project shows the addition on this side, connected through a flat roof breezeway with the living spaces at the rear. And this breezeway has floor to ceiling glazing to address their privacy impacts. They're proposing some evergreen shrubs along the property line. This is the kind of zoomed in portion of the floor plan showing the breezeway and the addition. And here is the front elevation and the rear elevation of what they're proposing to construct. Here's some renderings and the side elevation that would have the curtain wall of fenestration facing the east. So since this is a study session, no formal action is required. If you have any feedback to provide the owner, that would be helpful.
And Nancy, does the applicant do a join for this discussion?
They do. I
Okay.
can bring them in right now.
Okay, so Kristen, you asked the commissioners if they have any questions
Before
for
the
the staff
applicant.
report.
Thank you.
No, for the, regarding the staff report.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions regarding the staff report prior to hearing from the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll come up then.
Okay, so I believe we have the architect and the homeowner here. Do you have a brief presentation that you'd like to present, or should we proceed with what Nancy showed us?
We have some additional drawings. I guess I could walk you through. I mean, would you like to hear about sort of the genesis of the project, why this all came about?
Yeah, the purpose of this discussion is to understand the design intent, see what the current process is and status of the design so that we can guide you on our understanding of the design review standards and how to make sure you're proceeding towards meeting them with the design as it evolves.
Okay, let me share my screen here. So like many people during the pandemic, this couple, Brad and Carly Silicani, found themselves both having to work from home. And so they kind of outgrew their own home. You know, one is on loud Zoom calls and the other one is trying, you know, to drown it out. And so what happened was that they realized that they needed really separate spaces. And I think also just a lot of time at home. You just need more space, kind of for your mental sanity, I probably would say. And so what we came up with, and actually we did entertain just extending out this wing, but we found it to just be more successful in actually building out another structure that would, and I know that you all are sensitive about, you know, really balancing the cut and the fill and trying to not take away as that too much dirt off site. And so really working with the landscape to step this structure in the back. And so we kind of leaned into the grade change and even created like a sunken living area in here. And also it's been really fun working with the client because the wife is a landscape designer. And so she's already added so many trees and so much vegetation to the site. But we're really working with the landscape just because, you know, that's just the way that her mind thinks. And so a lot of our design moves are not only bringing in vegetation into the spaces through courtyards, but also working with the landscape instead of altering it too much. Sorry about that. And so here in the existing versus proposed site plan, as Nancy showed us, you have, let me see if I can zoom in here so you can see it, the existing house, and then the 900, sorry, let me zoom in here, 900 square foot addition. We have a deck wrapping around and the breezeway connecting the two structures, and a lot of trees along the property line to provide privacy for both the client but also their neighbor. And some renderings showing what our proposed design will yield. If you see, basically the front view is not really changed much. This is what it looks like currently. They do want to repaint the house, but because of the fence on the left side, you don't see anything different from the street. The view that will change mostly for the next door neighbor. But actually because of the landscape that we're adding, we're sort of obscuring a lot of that addition. Let's see. And then this is more of the perspective from the Silicani's yard, how we're really integrating with the existing aesthetic of the main house and coming up with something that kind of is compatible with the main house. And I probably would think that we went for black because it matches the main house, but also because it disappears in a sense. And to zoom in on this addition, we're kind of reconfiguring some of the existing house so that it just sequentially makes sense as you go down the corridor and down the breezeway. But this is the main bedroom and bath, and probably also where one of them would work so that they get really good acoustical privacy from the other person working at home. And Nancy showed this already too, but this is how this breezeway is integrating with the existing home and connecting it to the pavilion in the back. I mean, I think that's the main view that's really affected, so I won't really go through the others. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. Are there any questions or things you want me to elaborate on?
Any commissioners have questions for Christina? Eugene, please go ahead.
Thank you. Christina, on your scheme, do you have any drawings or any analytic to compare where the other adjacent houses situated, both vertically and horizontally about your property? The one that is of specific, sensitivity, I guess that would be the one on the east side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this mass here represents where the neighboring home is.
Mm-hmm.
Vertically, we don't have it in our elevation, but I'm thinking you would probably see it in the background. Actually, I don't know if you would really see their house in the background, but it would be behind this view.
Mm-hmm. But what about cross-sectionally? I'm just interested in what the impact would be the next door neighbor's property, if there's any windows that are looking at your property, and likewise the other way as well. And you have a lot of interesting glazing on that side, which is very interesting. But how that works as a layer with you have a filter, I think, landscaping filter, how that works with the other side of the property.
Yeah, you're right. This side is the face of the addition that is up against the neighbor's fence. So I think we justified it as like it's a breezeway. So there's a bench, maybe there's some shelves, but it's not a highly frequented space per se. And also, actually, we got a letter of support from the neighbor, if that helps at all, that we could pass on as well.
And what kind of glazing is that? Is it clear glass? Does it have some reflectivity? What sort of idea do you have in this beautiful glass partie you got going in Christina?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spec'd it out yet. We're not that far along, but I would imagine it would be like low iron clear glass, although Carly's desk would be in this corner. So kind of we have like a modesty panel that wraps that. So it wouldn't be totally, we haven't updated that, but this wouldn't totally be glazing floor to ceiling here.
It's a storefront all the way. That's interesting.
Yep.
What about
a modesty panel around the desk because she wants an L desk at this corner right here.
Then have you considered, Christina, the night look? The lighting condition at night. It's going to be lit, right? So how does that affect your?
Well, I was thinking. I mean, just for privacy, I don't like people especially at night. If you're lit inside, everyone can see in, but you don't even see eyes looking at you. So I was thinking we would just put this either on occupancy sensors or, motion sensors and only light it when people are in it rather than keep it lit. Because I personally wouldn't want to be like a fishbowl for everyone to see at night. So that's what our plan was there.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, are there other questions by commissioners for the applicant?
I have a question. Christina, can you go through the existing materials for the siding and the new ones that they are being proposed and how you're envisioning that transition could happen?
Oh, yeah. Let me see what would be the best. Probably would be best to show you the existing photo. And so right now it's just painted white beadboard. This is a painted or stained masonry. And what else is there? It's not the best photo, but the garage door and the entry door, like a darker stain, I would say maybe like mahogany colored wood. And then the windows are black framed. That's about it. It's pretty minimal. And then when the client does want to paint the facade a bit of a lightish green, but still preserve these black trim accents. And so when we got to the back, I should start with this one. We're kind of drawing from the black of the existing home with, and I guess I should mention, like, we don't want this to feel like some sort of office building in a suburban neighborhood. So even though right now at the scale of these renderings, you can kind of only tell that they're black, this is going to be sort of like a stained black wood. We want it to feel naturalistic, not corporate. And so we have black stained wood here, adjacent to like the painted green beadboard, and then natural wood colored trim here, board form concrete. The client already has some concrete pavers and such, so that's how we're tying into what's existing.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you for the presentation and for answering the questions. I'd like to now go to commissioner comments. I believe that's the right format.
No public comments.
Public.
Public comments. Sorry, I didn't know study session had public comments. So are there any public comments?
If
Nancy?
anyone would like to make comments on this study session item, please use the raise hand function or press *9. No hands are raised.
So typically after public comment, there would be a rebuttal opportunity for the applicant, but I don't think there need to be any rebuttal comments since there weren't any public comments. So with that, I'd like to go to commissioner comments. Glenn, would you like to start?
Yeah, I like the design. In fact, I looked at the backyard. It's like my backyard. Greenhouse and chicken coop and everything. I feel right at home. But anyway, I think the one comment I have is sort of the build off of Eugene's comment. The breezeway, because it's full fenestration, full height, I'm concerned about the light associated with it, because basically you're going to have quite a bit of it sticking up above a 6-foot fence. While it's not parallel to the neighbor's house, so it's not going to necessarily light up their bedroom. I don't know actually what their orientation of their bedroom is, whether they'll see those lights on when they're trying to lay there in bed or not. I think the motion sensor is probably a good way to minimize the amount of time. But even when it does turn on, I have some concerns about how the light is directed or how intense it is, whether it's going to really affect the neighbor, whether tinting on the windows will improve it some. I do understand what they're trying to do, which is basically make it look like there's no glass there and you're living outdoors. But that's my main concern, is that if that can work, then I see no problem with the rest of the design.
Thank you. Armin, do you have comments?
Sure. I think it's a beautiful design. I appreciate the presentation and the clarity about the decisions made. To some extent, I agree with that. I think Christina's suggestion about the occupant sensor for the lights, that makes sense. And also, I'm imagining because of the amount of glazing, there might be some sort of roller shade or something that goes behind the glazing. So it's going to cover it. I think the design is beautiful. And for the next round, I would just ask for a little bit more information about the context, the adjacent neighbors, and how is that going to work with the new proposal. And looking forward to see the next round of development.
Thank you, Armin. Eugene?
Thank you, Chair. I think all of us are going to have similar sentiments about the approach that you've taken, Christina, on this project. I think that it has some very interesting poetics about it. I think it's going to come down to detailing. But I wanted to just express some of the comments that we usually have asked of all the applicants, and we want to be fair with everyone. We normally would like to see some more contextual drawings. Meetings like this, in your elevations, we would like to see the adjacent house on either side so that we can understand the vertical data point and the massing quality, as well as anything that you can pick up on. Either you've tried the approach of juxtapositioning or assimilation. The two approaches are always understood either way, but we'd like to know what the adjacent houses look like or are positioned relative to your property from where they're set. Just looking at the photograph in your previous presentation, Christina, I thought the house on the east side looked like it might be slightly lower than the property that you're at. And I welcome the fact that you have the neighbor support, which is wonderful. But the ownerships do change once in a while, and we just want to make sure that forever into its own life, that you would have a very good neighbor relationships. But so here, looking at this, there's a window, looks like, just looking at that side view of that dark house there. And it looks, I don't know, it might be at the same data point. But anyways, you can demonstrate that by showing us, relatively speaking, how it's positioned on your exterior elevations and maybe a longitudinal or cross-sectional profile to give us some relativity on how to measure your building addition to the adjacent neighbor. I think the color scheme, we'll want to know a more detailed color material board as you go. We don't mind some compelling, modern look as well. And you're looking to do the dark look, that's fine. Obviously, it's going to be, whether it's matte finish, flat finish, all these other variations that happen, it's going to be in the detail, of course. So that's all. I think it's a good start, but I think I'm sensitive about the future owners of the other property, whether they change or the neighbor that has a strongly endorsed your project will be there forever. But we want to be sensitive about the night activity as well as daytime activity. And it's an easterly elevation, so the light will be very shallow, low angle probably, but it will also get some reflectivity from southerly side as the sun continues to navigate itself throughout the day. So there you go. It's going to be the detail, what kind of you choose, right? And so on. But Christina, it's a great start. Thank you for presenting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Commissioner. So I'll wrap it up by concurring with what has been said. And I do want to emphasize some of Eugene's comments about the sort of extensiveness of the presentation. So since we will be seeing you again for a hearing, it's really important. We always ask everyone to show the context elevationally and in sections so that we really understand how neighbors might be having light pollution or views into other windows and what the relationship among the whole neighborhood is. So that's a really important part of what we do. As much as we're looking at an elegant project, we're also looking at the relationship among all of the buildings nearby. And the materials are really critical for us to see. So I think there's an understanding or some assumptions that we're all able to make now about the dark wood and the dark metal frame, that it would just be nice to see some specific, more detailed representations of all of that. And that will make us more comfortable in the next hearing with proceeding forward. So really thorough and complete presentation makes the process more clear and expedient for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, do you have any other questions for us about the next steps? I know that the planning office will walk you through it and is clear about how it all works, but do you have any questions about any of our comments?
Not about your comments, but perhaps about the next steps, because in some early talks we had with someone at planning, and I can't recall who it was, there was some, you might have to do this and you might not. Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't have that with me right now.
It was in conversation with me.
Was it you, Nancy? Okay. Yeah, so what would the next steps be? Administrative review, Hillside Overlay District permit. Is that the next step?
I can talk to you offline about the next
Okay.
steps.
Got it.
It would be great. Okay, thank you.
Right,
Then-
thank you.
Next on our agenda is a continued public hearing for, let me see the address, for design details associated with TR 9526, and it was a design review for the demolition of an existing commercial building and construction of a new multifamily development. The parcel is located at 3721 Mount Diablo Boulevard. So Nancy, I'll let you, are you the planner on this, Nancy? I assume you're presenting.
I'm presenting for all today.
I know you're the planner on everything. You're
Okay, I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to actually be gone for at least 10 minutes and then I still won't be participating. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
The item before you is DR 2019 design details for 3721 land, also known as the West End project. To provide a quick recap on the project history, Design Review Commission and Planning Commission reviewed the original entitlement and then forwarded it to City Council for final action. City Council approved the entitlement in June of 2020. The approval included as one of the conditions requiring DRC review for design details. DRC reviewed the design details in December of 2020 and provided the applicant additional comments and instructed the applicant to make further modifications with respect to facade articulation, window treatment, material details, and landscaping. December was the last time the project was reviewed by DRC due to the applicant taking time to do the revisions and a lawsuit filed by the adjacent westerly neighbor, which the trial court found in favor of the applicant. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the council approved plans, the Design Review Commission progress plans for design details in December of 2020, and the current plans. Upon staff's review, it appears that 3 out of the 4 comments made by DRC have been addressed. It's staff opinion that the window treatment does not address the privacy concerns raised at the December 2020 meeting. While the windows have been modified to be less busy with the mullion and trim elimination and reconfiguration of the placement pattern, the overall square footage of glazing has increased by roughly about 60% on the west elevation. In addition to the revisions summarized in the staff report for the design detail comments, the project also modified the interior layout by reconfiguring the lobby one unit between the 2 floors, between 2 floors, the exterior layout with changes to the building wall, plane shifts, offsets, and recesses, decks and patios, some were added and reconfigured in sizing. Utilities were relocated and combined with the trash enclosure and electrical room. Circulation, shifting the stair and elevator locations as well as from the street, and lighting by introducing lighting. And staff has broken down the design comment elements called out in the City Council approved conditions of approval and how it's been addressed by the applicant in the staff report. To clarify, DRC's review shall include those listed items, but it's not limited to them. Since publication of the staff report, staff received 2 public comments, one from Don Tatson expressing concerns for safety and building evacuation. He asked whether there was a backup power for the garage. Staff forwarded this to the applicant to see if there was an alternative or a backup option, but I haven't received any response yet, so I believe that they're going to respond during their presentation. Another one from Brian Flynn, who is from Luzo Drury LLP, representing the Westerly neighbor, and they're requesting a continuance pending the appeal litigation. Staff checked in with the city attorney, and the applicant can move forward with the design details meeting, but it's at their own risk. So staff recommends the commission review the project, provide feedback to the applicant, and continue the matter for the applicant to reduce fenestration on the westerly elevation. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. Do any commissioners have questions for Nancy?
Yes. Nancy, what's the side yard setbacks for the project?
I don't know that at the top of my head.
Sure. It's showing 5 foot on the plans, and
Yeah.
it's minimum 5 foot. Okay.
Yeah, they are providing 5 feet. If they were providing less than what's required, I believe they would have gotten a waiver for that under the state density bonus.
Any other commissioner questions?
Sorry, one quick question. In terms of the window to wall ratio, the openings, you mentioned it's been increased 2%. Do you know what's that ratio now, or what's that percentage?
Based on my review of the plans from the city council approved plans to the progress to the current plans, I did a rough estimate using Bluebeam, and it looked like it was being increased by 60%, just because there's new decks being added on the western elevation, and the fenestration has increased. Before, I think it was just a door and then windows that didn't reach the ground, but now they're proposing floor to ceiling windows.
Okay, so it's 60% opening.
60% increase.
60% increase. Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, now I believe we open it up to the applicant for a 10-minute presentation.
Let me come up then.
Welcome to the applicant. We now have time for you to do a 10-minute presentation, which will follow up with public comment and rebuttal, and then questions from the commissioners as well.
We actually have Steve Stone and Randy Harris who will be presenting. So Nancy, can you let them in?
They should be already let in.
Yeah, it looks like they've been let in.
Okay. So Steve is going to start.
Steve, you are in the meeting, but muted. And your camera's off. And same for Randall Harris.
How's that?
We hear you now. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good evening, commissioners. It's been a while since we've been here for reasons that are you understand. But thank you for hearing us tonight, and thank you, Nancy, for a real well-prepared staff report. Nancy, your staff report we find very positive. As you know, our project was approved in June 2020 with condition 38. Sadly, our neighbor filed a suit against the city and 3721 Land LLC. The delay has been very upsetting. However, we're here tonight fulfilling the obligations of condition 38. While we agree with majority of the staff report, I'd like to clarify and explain certain aspects of your report that we don't agree with, and hopefully you have the hopefully we have the appropriate answers for those questions. I do appreciate the hard work, Nancy. Also appreciate taking over project review midstream is not an easy task. However, my first comment, this project has been delayed for 2 years after the council approval in 2020. And for our commitments, we have others. It is imperative that we get a project, or excuse me, imperative that we finalize this project tonight. We believe that counting windows is really not appropriate. As we have complied with both the building code for square footage of glazing allowed, and we are not asking for anything that would not be expected in an upscale project such as 210 Lafayette Circle, Lennar project up the street. Keep in mind, this is a single loaded walkway entrance with demising walls between the units. The windows and light for this structure are on the west side of the elevation. We have not reduced the total number of windows, but more importantly, have set a better placement of the windows. We elongated most of the windows and eliminated a considerable amount of mullions and trim. Preferring a softer stucco wrap, we eliminated the repetitive double hung windows with casement windows, making the elevation less busy. The garages were changed and now are located on the east side of the building, giving more distance and privacy to our neighbor. The height of the garage has been reduced, Mr. Sim, as you remember, been reduced. By doing this, we're not going to be grading or cutting haul off property line and creating off haul on the property line of our property in the Sotheby building as well. We have also increased the setback 5 feet at the lower floor to further insulate grading operations on the same property line. These changes were an effort once again to respect our neighbors' privacy. We have added windows, which will not be seen by Sotheby tenants as these windows where we added the glazing. These windows are next to or over the Sotheby building. Further, the existing landscaping on their lot provides excellent screening on the first third of our building and the last third of our building. See exhibit, Robert's exhibit. Nancy, could you put up the exhibit we sent to you from Robert with the landscaping?
It's the one that was sent this afternoon.
Yes.
Called elevation. Exhibit elevation.
In just a minute.
Thank you. This was done by Robert Becker. He handled all of this for us. What he was able to do was to add the actual landscaping that is on the Sotheby property and locate it where it actually affects our building. And you can see that that it's really quite well placed for us. Bear in mind that the first 30 feet of our building cannot even be seen because the Sotheby's building is right next to us. I think a false narrative has been created due to our neighbors' attempt to stall or stop our project moving forward. Please see that, well, you don't see there are no privacy issues on 70% of the neighboring property as there are no buildings on that property. Consistent with Commissioner Seidel's comment way back when, she found the elimination of the extra mullions makes the windows clearer, given the request from the last review. However, it is still difficult to tell if there is enough depth in the windows from how they set in the wall. This exhibit that you have in front of you tonight very well explains that, and Commissioner Seidel, I'll be happy to go over each one, but you can see that very few of the windows, the double hung windows there, where the arrow is, those are the only windows that really actually on the face of the elevation. All the other windows and the doors are all set back 8 feet from the face of the building, and in some cases further than that on the fourth floor. Especially the top 2 floors showing the negative space created in the distance from the windows and the doors on the decks to the property line. We believe the balance of the staff report adequately reflects all the changes that significantly improve the West End project. We look forward to answering questions you may have. Randy Harris, our architect, is here and can clarify any further questions you have. I do have one other comment in the staff report. There were some issues raised about the size of the 2 BMR units getting slightly smaller. Our communication with staff was that we will make the adjustments to make sure that those units are exactly the same size as they were when we were approved by the city council. And in reference to the parking garage, I think the question was, if the power goes out, yes, you cannot move your car, but you just walk down your stairs through the fire exits and you can get out and you'll be on the front street on the front of Mount Diablo Boulevard. Excuse me, can you explain what other questions did he have regarding this, Don Tansen?
I believe it was regarding access to their vehicles because of if there's a fire evacuation out of the city.
Okay, if there's a fire activation, you can't use your car because the electrical, there is no electricity. Same thing as being on the 30th floor of an apartment building, but the exits are adequate and fire exits are abundant. So they're safe and they're used all over now, and we're pretty pleased about the way it works. Can I answer any other questions?
I think now we would open up for public comment
Well,
first.
before you go, Kristen, may I ask some questions to the architect who has been working for you, Steve? I just wanted to go over the details.
Sure, I'm here. I'm not sure why my camera's not working, but I'm here.
Okay, hi, Randall.
Hi.
Randall, so as the staff report alluded to, there were 4 items, facade articulation, window treatment, material details, and landscaping. Those were the 4 items that we as commissioners had focused and zoomed in on, and wanted to have you give you an opportunity, Mr. Harris, to further explain, confirm, articulate as an architect of record what you did to accommodate. I know the staff had alluded to it. I know you have with Mr. Stone responded very clearly, but can you as the architect of record go through the key points here, the 4 key items that we as a commissioners had some concern or requested some further articulation? Can you go through those? So first is facade. What did you do? Because it's been about 1.5 years, almost 2 years since we looked at this. Can you do that for us, Mr. Harris?
Well, we've gone back and forth since our approval in 2020.
Okay.
On the facade. We moved the garage over to the east side. We've brought back the lobby entrance off of Mount Diablo Boulevard. But along the west elevation, we've moved. I think we've added more decks so that there's more negative spaces on that facade. The windows are further back. We've taken the. We had a lot of full length windows on that facade. We've taken those and moved them into like 5-foot high double hung windows to kind of break that up a little more and have a little more of the other finishes in the shown on the elevation. They're just, you know, minor tweaks and variations that we've used to try to address some of the concerns of our neighbor next door. We've taken the 4th floor and completely moved it back another 4 feet, I think, from the front of from the property line, so that the building front of the 4th floor is at least 8.5 feet back, and then the decks are, you know, beyond that. So
I'm so sorry, Mr. Harris. I am so sorry, but we're here as commissioners, right? But we have public looking in and listening in, and I'm pretty sure that they don't know what you might be talking about. We know a little bit, right, Mr. Harris? But is there a way that you could project on the screen these plans and just so that the public audience could know that?
I don't have them, but maybe
No? Okay.
put the.
May I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
number one, I think that the staff report has done very, very well and articulates every one of those changes in the staff report. And just clearly reading that tells you everything that we've done on that.
Yeah,
Front.
understood.
Oh, plus the staff report has addressed those issues, and the only issue that the staff now feels it hasn't been, in their opinion, addressed enough, I suppose, is the window fenestration, all landscaping, the facade. The other one, like they've all been addressed, and staff in their report says that out of those 4 items, 3 of them are not a problem anymore.
Nancy, could you pull up the elevation drawings that compare the windows? Perhaps that would help the conversation. I appreciate what the applicant is saying about many items having been addressed, but I think it's hard for us to understand the 4th one without some visual reference.
I agree, Chair.
I will share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've gone back and forth with the location of our shingles. There's a little bit of comment about maybe there was too much of that, so we've worked with that back and forth. We've brought the window, all the bedroom windows have been brought up now, so they're shorter. They're casement windows. We've articulated the front a little bit differently. The black and white photo doesn't really do it justice compared to the other ones, but if you look at the current perspective at the bottom right-hand corner, it pretty much shows the articulation and the negative spaces and the positive spaces and the play with the different materials and the horizontal banding to keep it, to help, it addresses a verticality a little bit. But I think what we really need to understand is that all the windows that are on the furthest property line, they're bedroom windows. And so in a project like this, you would expect that the most, if it's a privacy thing, the most you'd get was be 2 people looking out that window. And most people, if you live up, above the 2nd floor, when you look out, you don't look down, you look across because you're looking at the view. So unless there's a big party going on next door and people wonder are interested in what's going on, they're really not going to be interested in what's happening down below. And then in our more public areas where the living rooms, those are set back quite a ways. So there is really no direct views down into our neighbors. And then the 4th floor was set back even further, so to even reduce it even further.
Commissioner Sim, may I interject as well? Looking at those elevations, you'll see that what we did at one of your comments with our earlier design was the garage parking was 2 stories and it looked very industrial. We reduced the size of the height of that garage and were able to put another unit up there and take away a unit from down below. By doing so, of course, we added quite a few windows to that elevation that wasn't there before. However, that elevation, as I said earlier in my comments, and if you look at Robert's landscape visual, what's actually there, that's not a what if and pretend. You cannot see the first third of that building because the Sotheby's building is right next to it. And then you have the trees. And those trees are actually in place along that very area that we have some decks and stuff. The other part that I think is really important, and I think it is a false narrative, and that is, why are we concerning ourselves with the views out of my windows when there is no building? Their building ends, and the screening, if you look, the screening of what they have planted there and what's at the back of the property, I'm designing building and windows that are appropriate for this size of unit, and we're not looking over anybody.
So, thank you, Steve. Nancy, have we hit the 10-minute mark? Just want to make
Sorry,
sure.
I was not keeping track of the time. I'm sorry.
I think we probably have. I think it's very clear, and I understand the comments from the applicant, and I'm pretty sure we actually have surpassed the 10-minute mark. So with that, I'd like to open it up for public comment, and I remind the applicant you will have a chance to rebut in case there are additional emphases you want to make. But Nancy, are there any public comments?
Yes. And the person that had submitted the public comment, Brian Flynn.
So Brian, you've been admitted, but I believe you're still muted.
Go, how are you? You see me now?
Yes, we can hear
Thank
you.
you. So good evening. My name is Brian Flynn from the law firm Lozo Drury, here tonight on behalf of Nahid Nasiri, who owns the adjacent property to the west of the project site. I'd like to thank the commission and staff for taking the time to ensure that this project is properly designed before allowing it to proceed. I'm sure you're aware that this project has at times been contentious. Back when this project was previously before this commission, staff had noted that the height of the building would be a point of contention for the community, and that the bulk, mass, and design would need to be finessed to honor the character of the city. And when the project was in front of the city council, their findings stated that the east and west elevations remain massive and out of scale with adjacent structures. So I know there have been a few design iterations since then, but I think this background underscores the importance of the commission's role for this project to ensure the best possible design that takes into account community concerns as well as environmental concerns to the extent possible. In that vein, staff's recommendation for a continuance on the remaining design issues is appreciated. I don't think it should be dismissed or diminished as just counting windows. And in addition, as noted in our written letter, Ms. Nasiri is respectfully requesting that the commission continue any further consideration of the project until the resolution of the current litigation. As you may be aware, our firm brought a lawsuit against the city regarding this project, alleging that the project was improperly exempted from CEQA, amongst other things. The trial court initially agreed with us that the exemption was improper because of rare bird species that are present on the site in the creek area on the property. But on a motion from the developer and the city, the court changed its mind and found that it was okay because the creek area would not be directly impacted by the building footprint or the construction related activity. We think the trial court got that wrong. We filed an appeal to the Court of Appeal last week. And given that that appeal may determine when and how the project might proceed, we're requesting that the commission not take further action until that case is resolved. Such a continuance would conserve resources and time, but also ensure that the commission is reviewing a legally entitled project that has fully considered its impacts to the community and to the environment. So for those reasons, we're in favor of staff's recommended continuance at this time and ask that the commission next consider this project if necessary after the appeal is resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. And now the applicant has a chance for a brief rebuttal. And Nancy, if you could time it, I'd appreciate it.
The
Thank you.
brief rebuttal will be brief. Nancy, as you said in your staff report, the issues just raised by Brian Flynn are really issues that have already been adjudicated. These issues have been decided by the city council. The focus of this hearing is very narrow. The continuance asked for is just if you were to continue this, which I don't think you can, until the appellate court hears this hearing, it would be a delay of the project of approximately 18 months. So Nancy, I hope you speak to the fact that the narrowness of this particular hearing is about design details, period. Not the height, not the width, not the square footage, none of those things. It's about the design details that are developed in your staff report, of which I can speak to the landscaping, and that is we have a plan that's also incorporated. We have to take it to the Department of Fish and Game if we want to do it. This is what you guys asked for. We designed it under the creeks preservation guidelines in your own city's policies. So we have improved the landscaping at the back of the property. Again, we're simply talking about details, and we are not talking about the concerns of height, the concerns that were just brought up by Mr. Flynn. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that rebuttal. Commissioners, are there any additional questions before we go to commissioner comment?
I have a question for Mr. Harris. So it was brought up in the presentation that the openings, they meet the building code. I wanted to check, and because of the setback, it's about 5 to 10 feet. Have you run basically an analysis that shows the percentage of the openings versus the whole wall?
Randy? Yes, we have. And I think, I don't know where Randy went, but we did, and those calculations were submitted, I believe, and we are not in any way over any of those glazing requirements of the building code.
Okay, because building code prescribes 25%, it just looks more than 25%. It's shown.
I mean, Randy, our architect, had done that calculation
For
for
code.
request. Are you there,
I'm here.
Randy?
I'm doing the best I can here.
Well, they're asking about the calculations for the
Right.
glazing.
We sent Nancy a PDF of the calculation, so there is a worksheet you could put up to review that.
The bottom line is we are within the requirements of the building code.
Okay. My second question is on the plans, it calls for aluminum and vinyl windows. Are you going to use both of them, like the vinyl for punch windows and aluminum for?
No, it'll be one or the other. We've used vinyl clad windows. We've used, we're because of everybody knows about the how difficult it is to get things nowadays. That will be something that will be determined maybe at a later date. But if you want to know, we do high end, quality buildings, and if you want to go see what we do, go down to Monte Diablo Court and take a look at Paloma. And that one's been well received by the city and everybody that's seen it. We do quality work.
Anderson windows is what we used at Paloma, and I think we have given you staff. We have given staff the spec sheet on those and pictures as well of what we're going to supply there. Yes.
Nancy, do you know, are they aluminum or vinyl? I think Armin is pointing out that there's an inconsistency in the documents, and I imagine that's a pretty critical selection for our decision?
Yes, in their plans, they mentioned either or. They haven't decided yet.
Okay, thank you.
But they will be consistent.
Yeah, there won't be some of this and some of that. It'll be the same material all the way through.
Okay. So I think unless there are further questions from the commissioners, we can go to commissioner comment. Eugene, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to thank the applicant for coming today again. It's been about 1.5 years since we last saw you, and thank you for addressing our concerns, and see that much of it has been reflected in the staff report. And Nancy, thank you very much for your detailed analysis. My concern as a commissioner would be that we have in the past, not in this particular application, but some that we're seeing that we have gotten promises or some clear articulated descriptions, but then the final execution of the project turns out less than what we had anticipated with excitement. Either they're flat or their articulation is not as elaborate as we had originally thought. So what I'm looking at from as a commissioner is to make sure that that we have an opportunity to make sure that this project is, I think this developer is trying to do that, but to make sure that articulation really means articulation, and hopefully that we can have controls or understanding that this will be executed as we agree to and approve of. So that's part I'm concerned about. So I know that right now is our comment phase, but I'm first of all thankful that they have followed up on our concerns, but I'm looking at like construction drawing. I'm not sure if I want to get into inches of this type of thing, but I do want to make sure that we don't end up with flat facades, and whether it's Anderson permission window or Pella or any other things that are out there with window system, that they are articulated, they're elaborate, they show the value, the approach that Lafayette has here as a community, is that we really want high quality projects, and that comes into the detailing as well. So I just bring up that comment about making sure that we stick the details into this project so that we see the final execution as we all agreed to tonight.
Thank you, Eugene. Armin?
Thank you for the presentation. I think the changes made has made the facade much better, even though it's increased the amount of glazing on the west side. I think that's something that should be considered in the next round of the review. And in terms of the window, I think it's important, as Eugene mentioned, that we understand what's the detail and what's the build-up of the window frames, and if it meets the amount of articulation that we would like to see for a project at this scale. And I think I also had a hard time, the applicant mentioned about the adjacent properties, but there is no section at large that shows what's that relationship. I think that's something missing from the presentation, even though we've tried to be consistent with all the applicants to asking for the context information, and I think that could help to visualize what applicant was presenting today, to see it on the drawing sets.
Thank you, Armin. So I will follow up with my comments. I am in agreement with my fellow commissioners. I do think that the development of the elevation and the facade composition is an improvement. So I appreciate that the designers and the applicant moved the garage and have a much more uniform arrangement of how the windows are aligned vertically on the elevation. So I think that's an important thing. I do read the depth and the definition of the recessed portions, which I think also contribute to visual interest. I do want to highlight that one of the comments from the applicant that it's hard to understand or seems unnecessary to worry about windows on the side when the adjacent building is lower. I think it's always important to keep in mind that the decisions we're making are responding to existing context, but also potential existing context. So we're trying to think about a lot of different things, some of which may never happen or may happen in a different way than is anticipated. But the reason we have these standards and guidelines is that we're trying to address these things so that you build something that works well now as well as in the future. So my general perspective on this is that I don't think that we need to be, I think our decision will be independent of any of the legal, sort of adjacent legal concerns that are happening simultaneously with this, and that we as a commission are issuing a decision regardless of what that is, because the legal decision can happen regardless of what we decide. So I know that there are a couple of outstanding items that the commission would like to see. I think a little bit more detail about what the windows are, knowing that the windows are reflective of a certain quality and a certain kind of detail seems like it's probably critical for this commission in order to proceed with approval. So I'm wondering from my fellow commissioners, what would the motion be? Do we want to do a continuance and ask for details on the windows? Or are you prepared to, what if we're continuing it and asking for information, what would that information be? Or is there any interest in an approval?
One thing that I see is that Mr. Tadson has made some concerns. I think that the applicant has articulated and responded, but maybe a diagram or some document to further notate that, so that we have record that this concern and this issue has been mitigated. So one is like the area of refuge, I suppose, evacuation plan. I'm pretty sure the applicant will go through the fire marshal's review and get all those prerequisites. But just because that is a comment and question that came from the community, I think that we want to at least follow up, have a deliverable that notates that this is what's happened. So it alleviates some concerns from the community, right? That one item. And then the second from Mr. Tadson was about emergency operations generator, and just a response to that would be helpful. So that's my direction to staff. Let's at least respond back to community with those questions that came up. And so we should respond. That would be my thing. So continuing, maybe it's really more of a consent item, maybe. It could be next meeting. You put that response in there, and as well as some more
More detail. Yeah, I'm
the window, right? Kristen, I think, and Armin. I think Armin was very clear about that. So I think we're just talking about detail. We're not inventing new items, because that we have no right to do so. We're zooming in. If this is what we are all trying to work together, this is what we want to happen. We want to help to achieve that detail.
My one question, Eugene, about adding the items that are essentially items that would be covered during building permit review that would essentially be required then anyhow. I don't want to make those things that we need to see in order to approve, because I feel like then we set a precedent of, people could ask for, I want to make sure that the lighting layout is correct. So I want to make sure that we aren't asking for things that wouldn't be part of our purview unless there's something about the design that indicates that it would be impossible to satisfy. So maybe, are there things about the design that indicates it could be hard to achieve these things? In that case, I think we could ask for sort of advance indication that it could be done, but it's not clear to me that we have significant concern about that.
I think a detailed drawing for the windows could show that, how much recess is envisioned for the window frame versus the exterior, the finish of the exterior wall. And either vinyl or aluminum, if they could meet that criteria, I think that should work for us. So I think a detailed drawing of the windows, that could be the critical item that we could review.
Yeah, Kristen, I could go either way on that, Kristen. I think you're right that next phase and building permit, they'll get all that, taken care of. But I think it's as a normal practice, I think the city doesn't have to be as a conditional approval. I think staff will probably already respond to that. So I'm fine, Kristen, however we go there. I think Armin's right. That's where our laser focus is with window details, all kinds of detail, right? But we don't have to hold up the application, right, based on that, right? We're not. We're trying to make this into the next phase where we could look at it as a consent item, and if they do that, we can. If any one of us find that we need to have ask more questions, then we can pull it out, right? But we could keep it as consent for one. I don't know how many more meetings we're allowed by the mandates either, Nancy. How many more meetings are there? There's several meetings you do, but you are limited by how many, right? And I think there's a...
The limitation is only for the original entitlement. So since it's already been entitled, it's really unlimited at this point. But I'm sure the applicant wouldn't want that.
Nor would we. So Nancy, can we do a motion that approves it with the contingency that we need to see window details, and then it would be a consent item? So I guess it's not really an approval, but that with, I don't quite know how to phrase it and what the process is.
Kristen, I think the staff report though, Kristen, right? Nancy, please correct me. Staff is recommending that we continue this item to allow us more, or the applicant more opportunity. But we're finding, as three of us talking, that there may not be a lot of items except more detail. So
That's correct. I would also have to prepare a resolution for approval as well, just because other design details have required the same.
Okay, so then I think so we're basically doing what the staff is recommending. And just to clarify for the applicant, we very specifically only are concerned about the detail related to the window and specifying a particular window. We know that there are always challenges, particularly now with knowing what we could get, but I'd say assume that procurement won't be an issue, and just propose what you are selecting and give us some details about it. We don't so much need the rendered elevations, but some construction details, and that's what we would need to see in the future.
Did you also want, I believe I took notes, the context against the neighbor?
That's our standard practice, so I think we would also want to see that.
Okay. The applicant has raised their hand, so I don't know if you want to let them respond to anything, or just...
We don't typically do that, right?
Not typically, but it's up to the chair.
A very brief comment would be acceptable, like 2 minutes or less.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So this is Randy Harris, our architect. A couple of things. The fire marshal review, we got this thing approved a long time ago, and it's gone through the fire department, and the basic exiting of the building, the shape of the building hasn't changed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Harris, I'm confident that you are working with the fire marshal and that will be fine. I don't need to hear more information about something like that. I think if you have a question about what we are proposing as the resolution now, which is really just about the windows, I'm happy to talk about that. We don't need to talk more about something that's building code related rather than design.
That's fine. I just want to, then I can mention that when in our approved project, we had window details. And so we didn't feel like it was necessary to resubmit them.
Okay, well, you can work with staff to make sure that that is part of the resubmittal. And if it is, and they seem consistent with what we understand you're describing, then it should be a fairly straightforward approval at the next round. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion from one of the commissioners?
So we have a motion to continue this to next, is there dates specific, Nancy? We'll just say continue and
The next meeting is June 8th.
June 8th. Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue this item to the June 8th DRC meeting. And included into the motion is that we would like to recheck or review the details, particularly as it pertains to the window area.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we will take it to a vote to approve the motion as raised by Eugene and seconded by Armand. Eugene, how do you vote?
Aye.
Armand?
Aye.
And Kristen, myself, votes aye. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a new public hearing for a request for a hillside development permit and design review permit to construct an 812 square foot addition of total additions, including a 686 square foot new second story with a maximum ridge height of 22'6" at an existing one-story single-family residence at 360 Shire Oaks Court. So Nancy, I'll let you take it away with your staff report. And we have Glenn back just to highlight that as well.
So the item before you is HP 0922 for Nielsen and Bunch. As you said earlier, it's for 812 square feet of additions at the first and the second floors with maximum ridge height of 22 feet 6 inches. This is onto an existing single-story, single-family residence on 360 Shire Oaks Court. The lot is on R10, and this is the portion where the second story addition is. Can't really see it now, but there's also shaded portions of the extended porch addition underneath the porch, and then a change to the roof line over here with the dormers. The existing development is 2,051 square feet, and the project proposes a modest 120 square foot addition at the front at the first floor and 686 square feet at the second floor above the southern portion of the home. They're also proposing to change the existing roof form from hip to gable. This second story will be stepped back from all sides to reduce massing, and it does not propose windows on the north or the south sides to avoid privacy impacts to their adjacent neighbors. Windows on the east and the west elevations will have no privacy impacts since there's ample existing tree screening. There were a number of public comments which were included in the staff packet. Since publication, staff received one additional comment that was forwarded to the commission earlier this afternoon from Elgin and June Lee. They expressed support and cited that the project will not impact their views. Staff recommends DRC review the project, conduct a public hearing, and adopt resolution 2022-09, finding the project exempt from CEQA and approving the project subject to conditions. This concludes my presentation.
Oh, speaker.
I can't hear.
Okay.
Kristen is.
Oh, now I hear you. Sorry. I stopped working, but now we're back. All right. Thank you for that report. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Nancy?
I have a quick question, Nancy. On the plans, I believe it's drawing A-1.1. It's showing the setback line and the new proposed second story is right. It's basically just touching the setback line at two corners. So it means that the eave is going to encroach into the setback. In terms of the city policies, are we okay with the eaves encroachment?
Yes, eaves are allowed to encroach in the setback up to a certain amount based on the setback requirement. It's usually a third of the required setback.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything
Oh,
again.
no, you're frozen. Ouch. reception maybe in Kristen's areas not working properly. Well, what happens when the chair is frozen? Who's next?
The next person in line can take over the reins. She's still in the meeting, so I think
Okay, that's
we'll give her like maybe a minute.
Can you guys hear me? I don't know.
Yeah.
what-
Yeah, I
I
can.
think I have Wi-Fi
No worries.
craziness. So I will try to continue. Are there any other questions for
No.
Nancy from the commissioners?
None.
Okay. Nancy, would you like to call in the applicant for their presentation, please?
Hi, can you see and hear us?
Yes, we can see you. We cannot see Joaquin. And Joaquin, I believe you're also muted. So I don't know who's presenting, but please tell us about your project and you can supplement what Nancy has presented.
Joaquin, did you want us to go first?
Sure, okay. Is Austin here?
I'm not sure. There's one person that's raised their hand, but it doesn't say Austin. It's Water HVT. Do you know if that's Austin?
I think so, yeah.
I'll let them know.
Yeah. Water HVT. What is this?
Austin, is that you?
Yes.
Are you there? Okay, there you are.
Apologies for that. That's a nonprofit group that we work for, but it came up. Usually it's my name, Austin Hill Shaw. So my apologies.
All right. Do you want us to start, Austin, or did you want to go?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to introduce these two here, Courtney and Nick. You know, we work with a lot of different residential remodels and additions, and I just got to say that these two have been such a joy to work with. And I really love just their story, that they've lived all over the world. They are very cultured. They've experienced a lot of different things. I like to think of Courtney as the worldly writer, and I like to think of Nick as the cosmic creator. And they have two lovely children, a daughter and a son. And I just, you know, they've been all over the world, but they've chosen Lafayette as a place to raise their kids. You know, it's proximity to San Francisco and also the open space. And just what's driven this project for Joaquin and I and working with them has just been how courteous and wonderful they are to work with, and how dedicated they are to family, not only their kids, but also their aging parents. And so that was also part of the design. How can we make sure that the people that they love have space to come to be with them so that they can feel, you know, comfortable and loved. And it's a beautiful site, really beautiful redwoods to the north and to the west. And yeah, it's tucked right in. You know, it's got a hill to the eastern side and it goes down slope on the western side with beautiful sunset. So it's a really great project. And with that, I just want to pass it off to you, Courtney and Nick, just to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. Yeah, I think we can give a little bit of context as to the project, and I think Austin and Nancy have already touched on a number of these things, but this was largely motivated by the growing needs of our family. Like Austin said, we have two young children, as well as aging parents that visit frequently. And so the first item on our to-do list here is to create a space for our family grandparents to come visit the children, that also provide comfortable space for the rest of the family. And so that's largely what motivated the addition of a second story master suite, while leaving intact the existing master suite for visiting family. We also wanted to improve the livability of the home, And we did this by expanding and reshaping the living, dining room, kitchen area, as well as adding a mudroom, laundry room, and additional office space for increased work from home prevalence. And then finally, we wanted to update and improve the curb appeal of the home to be more consistent and contemporary with contemporary materials, colors, but also fit thematically with the neighborhood and the environment. And you'll see in our designs that we're proposing a board and batten siding, which is consistent with many of the homes in the neighborhood, as well as a neutral green type color to go with the surrounding redwoods and other trees. I'd also like to point out that this was a unique project for Austin and Joaquin. The lot that we have is really unique. It's a flag lot behind another hill, behind another house, but with up and down slopes to the front and behind of the home, which leaves limited amount of flat space to work with, which is why we had to work with a second story here. But we've also tried to keep in mind our neighbors on each side, despite being a flag lot and being relatively private, with 6-foot fencing surrounding. We do have neighbors directly behind us and to the sides, and we've worked with our neighbors and gotten letters of support from each of our directly adjacent affected neighbors. And as they mentioned before, no windows to the sides of neighbors with privacy concerns, with setbacks as well. I think if there's anything else I'm forgetting here to point out, but
I don't think so.
But yeah, thank you very much, and appreciate you guys hearing our proposal, and thank you, Nancy, for taking this over after we've been working with Matt. We're sorry to hear that he came down with COVID, so thank you for pinch hitting here.
And before we get into, I just also want to just thank Joaquin also for his beautiful drawings. He's just does amazing work and always loves to make things really organized and clear. So thank you so much, Joaquin, for your work on this.
Thank you for that. Is that the completion of your presentation?
Yeah, we're open for any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions before I open it up to Eugene?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Joaquin, you're the architect of record on this, right? Or the designer? Are you an architect?
I'm not a registered architect, no.
Okay, so you're a designer, okay.
I'm a designer, yeah.
Make sure you don't call yourself an architect yet, right? So can you put on screen your drawing and to give us your narrative, why you did this and so on? We understand the need for the programmatic additional square footage, and you've got the second story addition, but can you go through your design and explain to us the concept, and so we can understand the project?
The concept, well, we were trying to be very...
Can you put this drawing on the screen so we can follow it together?
Sure. How do you, okay. Share screen, huh? Okay.
And I would highlight the things
there
that
it
are
is.
main design components, because that's the thing we're most interested in.
Austin, if you like to chip in, because he was just as much as valuable in this design as much as I was. But can you see the screen now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe let's go to the elevations first. If that's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, the elevations first? Okay, let's go do that. Exterior elevation. Oh, we're going wrong. Wait a minute. Actual size. Whoops. There we go.
First, let's hold on this for just 1 second. That's a great one to look at. Yeah. Just the
this right here. Okay.
Yeah. So again, this was required by the city, but it was really nice to see the how this project does affect the neighbors, and I really appreciate that with the Planning Commission here in terms of trying to keep this sense of privacy amongst these hill slopes. And it was a fun exercise for us to also just see that this is going to have
Mhm.
minimal impact and really help Courtney and Nick and their family. So if we can go to the other,
Can you slow down on the cross section below there?
Mhm.
And the houses below you. Can you tell us
Can you zoom in on it? Is it?
the one below that one? Yeah, that one. You're above the other house, right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe the current condition and what your approach was to mitigate any potential, sight line issues with it?
Yeah. So essentially what we did is that you can see we stepped back the massing on the second story in order so it doesn't have as much of an impact. And at the same time, we didn't include any windows or openings on that to maintain privacy on that side. And currently there is a hedge in that area that creates a privacy screen as well. And the neighbors are on board with the design as well. But again, we did step it back per the regulations in the hill slope development. And so just again, to minimize that impact over on that side.
Okay. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so perhaps if we can, let's go into the floor plans, Joaquin. There we go. So essentially the main gesture in here is over on the left-hand side of let's go to the existing.
Oh, you want to say, okay.
Yeah, just starting there. Yeah, essentially on the basic thing here is on the left-hand side of the drawing is the more public area. On the right-hand side of the drawing is the more private area. And if you'll notice that between the garage and the hallway, this is the prime bottleneck for Courtney and Nick here, in the sense that trying to get the kids out was problematic because of a washer dryer, doors opening, stuff everywhere. So just we did a really functional, a clean functional thing. But if we go down below there to the proposed drawings, if you can scroll down there, Joaquin, thank you. We just tried to open that up and make it more functional for both storage and getting people in and out of that space so that, again, the morning commute with kids and coming back in goes smoother. And then over on the left-hand side, we raised the ceiling by 2 feet, that walls by 2, by 2 feet. Mm-hmm. And in order to, the proportions of the original space there was a little bit compressed. It felt a little bit like a pancake. And so we wanted to open them up. And not only that, we wanted to match a bit of the massing on the second story addition. So you didn't have this sense of, one, kind of almost like a strange split level there. And so we feel like we created a balance with that and with the dormers on the top of that. Recording in progress. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Beaming in from hyperspace. Anyways, so that's and we tried to, again, we did a lot of rearranging and just trying different things out. And again, trying to preserve the privacy over on the north side, which is the left side of this, while at the same time creating a real sense of intimacy and connection, both to the east, which is at the top of the drawing, and out to the west, where those beautiful views of the sunset are. And the reason we put that porch on there is to sort of mitigate the solar gain coming in, because we know in that area that sun can get really hot. So having that porch out there and having that porch be relatively, the roof of that porch be relatively low, again, allows for connection without too much the blasting of that western sun, especially in this summer and fall. And then to the best of our ability, we also try to do minimum interventions on the other bedrooms within that first story, so that just a bonus, because they work perfectly fine at this point in time. And one is being used as an office. And again, this provides different ways in which they can use the space. Joaquin, if we can go up to the second story.
I'm going to interject. I'm sorry. It's really great to hear all of this, but we could probably focus a little bit more on some of the exterior elevations and then the interior rooms as they relate to windows, just so we focus on the things that are most relevant to our purview.
You bet. Perfect. So here you can see right now is the front facade. We have the proposed. One of the things that I loved about Nick is when he talked about their existing house, as he described it, is slightly schizophrenic, that you had lots of different things that were sort of working in contrast with one another. And so one of our things was to unify the design, to bring out the beauty in this by unifying it. So there's the board and bat that's used, the mullions, and you can see in the doors and the windows are starting to make more sense. And again, the proportions are also trying to feel but put together in order to feel that sense of cohesion of the design there. And so also on the back of the house, same thing. We employed the board and bat and also tried to unify the windows, both in the dormers and the doors and also the windows themselves. And then you can also see, again, on that lower, you can see how the massing steps up, especially for for the neighbors to the south, so that we're not overwhelming them with the second story, but and nor are there windows on that side. If we can actually go down to the next set of elevations there, then you can see our approach there. There we go. So on the top, we have the north elevation, and we do have a window there, and there's an existing window in that space already. And again, there is a fence between that property and the property to the north. And then again, on the south elevation, where again, there's that steep drop off towards the neighbor of the south, we have windows on the first story, which are not a problem, but we do not have any windows on that second story, which will also prevent excessive solar gain in that portion of the house. One of the things that we do intend to do is have an operative skylight so that we can have some stacked ventilation. So on hot days, that place can naturally air out and keep itself cool.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional commissioner questions for the applicant? Okay. From there, I think we can go to public comment. Nancy, is there any public comment?
There are no attendees.
Okay.
So no.
Okay. So as long as there are no further questions from the commissioners, we can open it up for commissioner comment. So Glenn, why don't we start with you, please?
Yeah, I like the design. There's several things I want to make comment to. I actually saw this first when it came to the Architectural Review Committee, and it wasn't sent to zoning administrator only, simply because the Burton Valley area is oftentimes resistant to second stories on the houses. And I appreciate the large amount of outreach that the applicant did to contact and talk to the various neighbors and modify the design to appease the neighbors. There was one comment that I saw in one of the letters about we can even put cedar trees as shield. Please don't do that. Not that close to the house. It's a fire hazard. I know that one of your neighbors has cedars along the fence line, but that's more distant from the house. And yeah, I like the design. I like the change to, you called it Craftsman. It's sort of a hybrid of Craftsman, but I like the design, and I visited the site and I think everything is great. I do appreciate that one neighbor didn't want a second story, but this site really doesn't lend itself to pushing out somewhere else. I mean, the second story is the only real option to add square footage to this home. Thank you.
Okay, Armin, do you have any, or please, we'd like to hear your comments.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. I think it was very clear, and the drawing set was very well put together, and I appreciate that. In terms of the design, I like the way that the new massing and the new addition is being proposed, and it's set back from the first floor. It works very well, and I think the way that it's farther away from the closer neighbor, I think it also works pretty good. In terms of its adjacency to the, I believe it's the southern properties, and given that they are farther down the slope, and there's a landscape, and I think there's a large tree there. I think I don't have much concern about the privacy on that property, and in general, I find the new proposal in line with our residential design guidelines, and I'm in support of that.
Thank you, Armin. Eugene, we'd like to hear your comments, please.
I think, Glenn hit it on the money. I think that outreach was good. So for me, it's a straightforward project. I really wish them well to come into the community with an extended family. The two-story building, there's some things I would do a little bit different, but that's personal. But I think it's a relatively good project to move forward. I have no more comment here.
Thank you, Eugene. I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think the proposed design is well conceived and coherent. I don't have any concerns about the second story. It feels consistent with the massing at the site, and it's thoughtful, and the outreach to the neighbors allays any concerns we might have. So with that, I believe that the recommendation from staff is an approval. Do I have a motion from one of the commissioners?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the draft resolution.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, thank you. We will vote on accepting the draft resolution. Eugene?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Armin?
Aye.
Okay, so the resolution, the draft resolution passes, and staff will finalize that resolution and be in touch with the applicant. So congratulations on moving to the next step in the process of building your home. Okay, our next item on the agenda is an ARC volunteer for this Friday. Are there any volunteers?
I can do it.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Next on the agenda are commissioners' reports. Are there any commissioners' reports?
None.
Okay. Last item on the agenda is the staff liaison report. Nancy, are there any reports?
There are none.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. With that, we will adjourn tonight's evening and see everyone in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Nice job. Nice job.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.